With a knock on the door, my life would alter always. Never would have I imagined it. That morning, everything seemed normal, or so I thought. But the woman at the door would teach me that falsehoods underpinned the marriage I had been dreaming of for years. Her remarks that exposed my wife Jane's adultery on me destroyed my heart. Cheating. That morning I learned from a stranger about an affair, but also about a reality that would completely flip my life. Had I realized what was about to happen, I might not have answered the doorbell. Always wanting to be an engineer, from my early years, I have been rather fascinated in how things are assembled. For hours I would stand in front of skyscrapers and consider how they became so tall. During high school, I decided to pursue education in design. Following my graduation from the University of Maryland, I began working at a well-known Northern Virginian design firm. Originally, it was challenging. I usually remained late at work to make ends meet since my pay was meager. I was living out my aspirations, so I never grumbled either. My life was following exactly the direction I had intended. I then got to know Jane. At her college cafeteria, she was often rushing at her work. She originally drew my attention, since she was a waitress. But later I realized she was more than just that. Being a single mom, Jane reared her small daughter Joyce alone. She found it difficult to run 2 jobs concurrently and raise her kid alone. I came to her in life drawn by her energy and fortitude. She was not simply beautiful. She seemed really confident and strong. Her strength and determination helped me in some sort to feel better about myself. We were having financial difficulties, so our first date nearly never happened. Jane lacked even the funds to eat out. Still, I was resolved to overcome this obstacle and provide her and her kid a solid existence. I assured her that we could go through anything together, and that her prior difficult circumstances were behind us. This commitment made Jane approachable to me. Our bond developed over time. Her little family became mine as well. Eventually, Joyce began calling me Dad, and hearing that word from her gave me hope that our family was real. Every day we drew closer and discussed our future ambitions. A few months later, when I asked her to wed me, it was among the happiest days of my life. I couldn't sense the awful days approaching, even though I was rather content. My work truly began to flourish after we relocated to Northern Virginia. Given everything appeared to be going, I felt my marriage to Jane was wonderful. But Jane grew unhappy with simply looking after the children as the years passed. She was increasingly ready to stand on her own. She entered the real estate market and performed admissibly as a realtor. Her career was headed rapidly forward. I first took great satisfaction in what she had accomplished. There for her, I tried everything I could to help her going forward. But the distance separating us widened the moment we were successful. Jane spent less time at home and worked more hours. She constantly had a fresh excuse for being home late or embarking on additional business travels. At first, I thought this was not an issue. Every one of us occasionally has hectic periods. But gradually our bond shattered. Even physically at home, Jane felt far away from me. Our conversations shortened and the moments we spent together virtually disappeared. The distance between us widened as we laid in bed. Every night when she arrived home after a business trip, I could see joy in her eyes. It had nothing to do with me. Though I didn't want to embrace it, I started to distrust things. Could she be lying to me indeed? I knew I wouldn't be able to take it if it were real, hence when I had that notion I wanted to keep it from her. That morning the solution dawned on me. There was a white SUV stopped in front of my house and a woman I didn't know standing there when I arrived home after letting Jane off at the airport. Barbara, she explained, was her name. When Barbara informed me her husband was cheating on her with Jane, my mind refused the fact. Jane was my wife. We had spent years together. How could someone damage you in such manner? Barbara's stories let me see Jane's true face. She said that for months Jane and her husband Leonard had been meeting at unoccupied houses under cover of darkness. To capture them and document everything, Barbara had positioned cameras in a hotel room. She showed me my wife had been cheating on me, and my head appeared to go blank. The images of Jane in a hotel room with another man completely inverted my universe. It then dawned on me Jane had been lying to me for years. The phone next rang. Jane spoke softly and compassionately as usual. "Hello, darling." She stated the conference was running really smoothly. When I saw her with another man, the simplicity in her voice frightened me. How could this be possible? What type of falsehood she may have told me? For me that day, right then, Jane passed away. Love I had for her vanished when she deceived me. 1 minute we lost the life we had accumulated over years. When Jane arrived home, there were just packed bags ready for her. The children have even turned away from her. This deception tore apart all that had held our family intact. One last glance at Jane. She seemed guilty, but at the time it made little difference. I had disconnected from my own feelings for her. Along with grief and wrath, there was love. That was extinct. She couldn't turn back now she was by herself. I became increasingly hollow inside as Jane packed her luggage and departed the house. All I had believed for years vanished in a flash. I thought just one thing as I watched her go. You are deserved. At that moment I felt as though I was once more in command of my life. Jane might never return into my life, but I will reconstruct it after she went. I concur that life continues. She would no longer be a part of this new existence, though. The home seemed to be in unusual silence as the door shut. A void existed when Jane went. Still, for some reason that empty space made me feel better. The falsehoods were behind us now, everything obvious. It somehow helped me to sense serenity. I got down and momentarily considered my entire existence. It brought up the first time I met Jane, her contented expression, and the objectives we had set together. Now, these recollections appeared far off and weird to me, like if they belonged in another existence. When I discovered Jane had deceived me, all those lovely memories collapsed and suddenly I was caught in the center of the rubble. I occasionally modified my way of living with the children. I attempted to hang out with Richie and Joyce more often. I could see they struggled with the dishonesty as well. Joyce struggled to cope with the knowledge that her mother was having an affair. I was juggling my own suffering, even though I wanted to be there for her. Tears filling her eyes, Joyce once begged me, "Dad, why did everything turn out this way?" At that point, all the emotions I had been suppressing surfaced. "I'm not sure, sweetheart," I said. "Many people we trust occasionally break their promise. Still, it is not our responsibility." As I massaged her head, I tried to blot away her tears. Seeing her in such suffering made my own hurt much more terrible. As her dad, I had to be tough for her and provide the security she required. Over time, our life lost appeal without Jane. At first, adjusting to this new reality was challenging, though there was obviously a gap. Tranquility prevailed as well. We were no more leading a life full of lies. The world was a great hole after Jane betrayed him, but over time a new order began to fill it. Spending more time with the children helped me to better get to know them. Maybe this process strengthened our family even without Jane. Jane lost more and less presence in my thoughts every day. My prior times with her now feel like long ago recollections. Sometimes the past would return to haunt them. Anywhere we visited. One of the songs we enjoyed both, simply anything little that brought her to mind. Things I recall don't sting as much as they did the past. They served as just memories of a period I had chosen to forget. One day the paperwork Jane sent for her divorce arrived. I kept the pen for a long time, staring at the blank area where my name ought to have appeared. Though it also marked the beginning of something fresh, the end of our existence together was penned on this piece of paper. Taking a long breath, I signed it. I discovered that ultimately life continues without Jane. Though it hurt a lot to be betrayed, things improved with time. Though it took some time, I managed to return into life. Starting a new phase of my life with my children and creating fresh memories with them thrilled me.